Chat with Nene Alice. If this is your first time tuning in to Chat with Nene Alice, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to send in your comments. Viewers, today I have a friend with me, not only a friend but a sister. She is Mary Jacobs, and I will ask Mary to introduce herself, and then we'll take the conversation from there.
Hi everyone, thank you very much for having me, Alice. My name is Mary Jacob Okrosa. I am a feminist and a creative advocate for a better and safer education spaces for children and bridging gender gaps generally. Thank you.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about creative advocacy, but then that notwithstanding, we are here in a meeting in Nairobi, and both of us are in a sexual and reproductive health and rights writers workshop. We are trying to develop the African Feminist Charter on Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights. And so Mary and I are in this right shop, and we're going to discuss some aspects of that as well. So Mary, thank you for gracing our stage, and thank you for accepting to come to Chat with Nene Alice. First of all, I just want to ask you, what country are you from?
Nigerian.
So how is it going in Nigeria in terms of, everything, just a situation analysis?
Okay, basically in Nigeria, just like every other African nation, it's not been the most amazing time for us, and we cannot turn a blind eye to the challenges that we are facing. But I mean, that's the reason why we're having more of these conversations. It's not been the best time, especially for women and girls, and this is a time to even improve and increase the voices that we have to bridge these gaps that are already existing. So it's not like it's been amazing.
Okay. So what is creative advocacy?
Okay, so creative advocacy is a form of advocacy that uses out-of-the-box ideas. It's just like the word creativity. It's like a creative approach to solving problems, developmental problems. So many of us in the development space have done a lot of advocacy, trying to add our voices to change laws, to influence opinions, to change narratives, to build people's capacity. And then through the years, things have been happening. We've been doing all of this amazing stuff, yeah? But we would also believe and agree that as much of the efforts we've been putting, it doesn't seem like we're getting as much results, which is why creative advocacy is like a thing, because now we're thinking out of the box. How do we pass this message, considering the backlash and bias existing? How do we bridge these gaps? How do we create things that are not existing? So basically, my organization, Whisper to Humanity, is a youth-led platform. So we basically find youthful approaches and youthful solutions in driving the change that we want to see. And that is basically what creative advocacy is.
Yeah, Mary, I also work in an organization that is working with children and young people. And I know we're still doing those traditional things, doing trainings, doing community outreach and all of that. How have you been able to develop programs in a creative way so that young people can use that as an advocacy tool?
Okay, so our basic constituents are young people. So and our working force is actually a team of amazing young people. Basically, what we do is find these missing gaps. 2 years ago, during the outbreak of the SARS protest and brutal killing the mother of so many young Nigerians across borders, we started thinking out of the box. Yes, we were protesting, but at the same time, so many people were leaving their houses to go protest and never going back home. So what were we doing? That was the process where we developed our amazing safety app. So it's called the Whisper mobile app. It's available on Play Store and Apple Store, of course. So basically, it's an amazing app that lets people connect with friends and family, keep track with their spouses, their families, their friends, and of course report harmful sports to help people stay safe. Also late last year in 2021, we also started the production process of our feminist games. So this year we presently have like card games, board games, and all of that. So anybody would probably feel like, oh, there are games, why is this different? But this is an advocacy tool. This is a game that is very intentional. So if you're playing the Whisper game, any of the Whisper games that you're playing has a story behind it. So it's just you changing narratives even without knowing that you're doing. The app is doing amazing things of safeguarding humans, even beyond women actually, children, even adults and different minority groups as well. So thinking of how we have found ways to teach and build capacity without necessarily bringing people into a roundtable conversation. It's like a very creative thing for me. And also thinking about the fact that we have been able to create an amazing app without having to go to the police or consult with the police. It's an amazing creativity. And recently, about 2 years when we started, of course, we created amazing school clubs. So we know, like you said, we've been doing all of this work. We've been trying to bridge this gap. We've been having these conversations. But very few times do we even take it to the very root of where it starts. So what we do is basically creating avenues that are out of the box, like creating a feminist school club, creating a school club where children basically come to have fun with a safe space in their rooms, in their schools. And then bringing this conversation to their teachers. We work closely with teachers and of course the Parents Teachers Association as well. So I think finding the gaps in what we are doing has been it for us.
Okay. So is the app only for Nigeria or it's all over?
No. It's all over the world, and we're working on updating a couple of features to make it more inclusive. So we are going to be having options of different languages. We are updating to have up to 5 languages, and we are also updating some features to include free lawyer consultancy and of course therapy sessions for app users.
So can you just share with viewers the name of the app?
Okay, it's called the Whisper mobile app. Yes, Whisper mobile apps. Just search in your app stores and thank you later.
Okay, so can you give us an example of some of the creative ways you have used your the creative advocacy? Some creative ways that you have been able to bring young people on board. Just an example, so that we actually know before we go to the app what we should be expecting.
Okay, so basically some of the things we have done is bringing young people together in a very informal way. So we all know how the young person's span is very short and all of that. So we have found ways to bring young people together without necessarily being a serious space. So we've been organizing movie nights, we've been organizing get-togethers, we've been organizing camp meetings, and through these processes.
So you get their attention through the app?
Yes.
And you announce the program?
And sometimes we also reach out to the young people that we are already working with. So these people come together and then we plan these amazing stuff like organizing virtual connectivity across borders in Africa, or opening African conversations. And then we do this thing with creative and artistic programs. Okay, so most of the hangouts we are having is like an artistic hangout. Come and paint your beautiful faces, come and drop your rap and punchlines. We just want it to be youthful.
And you gave me a bunch of cards. So
yes.
Is that another example of the creative advocacy? What
yes.
is it about that card?
Okay, the card is a card game that it's played like a normal card game, but basically has amazing characters. I don't know if you looked at it, it has like different shapes. So what we are trying to do with the card is to normalize certain words, words like justice, words like equality, and intersectionality. Some of these words are things that you're going to see on the game. So the shapes are, of course, the names of the shapes are, of course, mentioned on the card. So when you're playing this game, you're having fun, but we're very intentional about instilling these words in the mouth and minds of an average young African.
Okay. So Mary, the other question I want to ask you is, have you been able to record any impact?
Of course.
So share some of the impact stories that you have.
All right. So with the Whisper games, we have had conversations. We have like a follow-up conversation with teachers, and then we donate to public schools who are obviously or probably unable to afford these games. So in these processes, some of the things we've recorded, updates from teachers telling us how much this has influenced the work that they are doing, and of course how this have spurred more conversations for this trip. Because one of the games that we have on the Whisper Junior game is a body scrabble that that lets children feel alphabets and spell their body parts. And this includes very sensitive words and parts of the body that their parents don't want to talk about, that the teachers don't want to talk about, like the vagina, like the breast. And all of these things are conversations, and penis and all of that. So teachers have mentioned how their students are freer to use some of these words with them. And of course, when we had the consultations with the Parents Teachers Association in one of the schools where we have our school club, most of the parents asked us, like, how do you do this? You know, some of this we have also put up our evaluation plans, including but not limited to checking the number of users we have on the app, the number of reports that we are having from the users of the app, and of course how much more children are getting more interested to join our feminist platforms in their schools, and how many schools are reaching out to us to open these conversations. So these are like some of the impacts we have recorded.
Okay, so that you just mentioned about, you know, talking about body parts that we do not want to have conversation about with our kids. For example, the breast, the vagina, and you know, and other parts of the body that we do not want to like mention.
Yeah.
And our children we do not want to talk about that with our children. So it brings me to what we are here in Nairobi for. We are here together to develop the African Feminist Charter on Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights. So how useful do you think this? It's a writers' workshop, viewers, so we are developing the charter together. So how do you think this will be useful, you know, to the various platforms that you're operating?
Okay, of course, there's one thing about charters and bills and laws. This, especially for a charter, it's like an amazing guideline, an amazing document to look back to. So all of us, most of us have been having conversations across Africa, disrupting the normal and asking provocative questions relating to sexual and reproductive rights, and of course sexuality and sexual pleasures. So now developing this process is an amazing thing, is an amazing opportunity for me, and I think it's an amazing win for every young African feminist, especially those part of this process, and of course those that are willing to get involved, because now we are changing the narrative. We're developing a document that will build a basis for the work that we do. We're developing a document that will be a go-to person for every other organization that is working around sexual rights and all of that. So I think having this document, having this parcel of amazing entity is going to be like a start point for us to hold a tool to do the work that we do, all the words and amazing things that we are doing with a tool, an extra tool. We could go further.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mary, we also spoke about, you know, taboos, because we know in Africa there are lots of taboos when we talk about sexual and reproductive health and rights. So what are some of those taboos? Because they were interesting ones. One like you should not have sex in the dark.
Yes.
Yes. What are some of those again that we shared?
Okay. Yeah. I remember some of the taboos that we shared were
when you have red lipstick.
Yeah, when you have red lipstick,
you're considered a prostitute.
And of course how women are not considered to have sexual pleasures or initiate sex, or also taboos relating to how tribes and entities and religion and different other factors have made the woman's body the property of her father or her husband or an adult, and then when the woman is even widowed, her children. So yes, bodily autonomy is a taboo in our context. So like most of these conversations are like, you keep thinking about them and you're like, wow, it's the 21st century and we're still having conversations on how a woman should not even own her pleasure.
Yeah, Mary. So in as much as we spoke about the taboos, we also had desires, you know, because we want to, you know, overcome those taboos so that our desires, you know, can be actualized. So what were some of the desires we mentioned?
Okay, yeah, I know we talked about sexual pleasure. Yeah. We talked about having a more daring sexuality, exploring sex. We talked about looking at sexual reproductive health rights beyond 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 the justice in it. We talked about looking at it beyond documentation and all the laws that exist. To look, to look at it as very personal things, like something that women, men, and every other person should own. But especially, we talked about it as something we desire to own the process and our autonomy entirely.
Yeah. So you working with young people, how do you think this can impact their lives?
Okay, for young people, it's even more of a taboo because when we have older women, it's like these conversations have started. Somehow they have become mothers or they have had sex, and it's like, okay, they understand it now. But now the bias is this more for younger people because so many people tend to or want to believe that young people don't have a sexual life. So you start hearing things like, you're not supposed to have sex. Yes, abstinence is amazing, but how many young people really abstain? Okay, so the truth is, it is needful for us to bring a tool that starts discussing the fact that, hey, young people, we know most of you are not abstaining, but you cannot die or be wasted just because you cannot abstain. If you're sexually active, then it's not a bad thing. It's your decision. And then you could have options of what to do, how to do them, and how to manage your own sexual life and explore and have fun. And still protect others as well.
And you know, Mary, back home, when we talk about sexual and reproductive health and rights, we do not talk about comprehensive sexuality education. We do, the only things we talk about is teenage pregnancy, it's family planning, you know, and all of that. And we forgot that there are other issues, other things that are inhibiting people, you know, from enjoying their full sexual and reproductive health and rights. We know that people do lack information, and people still need skills, you know, as to how they can attain sexual pleasures and enjoy their full rights. So I hope that will be you know, as we continue to work in the community of practice, or as we continue to work in the various groups that we have allocated ourselves, I hope we'll be able to bring out all of those voices. We have done our best, you know, in Kenya, and we hope we'll have a very good charter at the end of the day. But I just want to say thank you very much for such an amazing work you're doing in Nigeria, and I hope I'll have the opportunity to come over, you know, and see, and then you too can come over to Sierra Leone and see what's going on. Thank you so much, and have a safe trip back home, and have a pleasant day.
You too, Alice.
Thank
you. Thank you.